Welcome, everyone, to this information session regarding the Christine Brunswick Fellowship Program that is put on by the ABA tax section. My name is Tony Infanti, and I'm the Vice Chair for Pro Bono and Outreach for the tax section. And I'm going to kick off the program by talking to you a little bit about an overview of the fellowship. So the Christine Brunswick Fellowship Program dates back to 2008. So it's been around for more than 15 years at this point. And the basic purposes of the fellowship are kind of twofold. One is to help, LITCs and other organizations get the support they need to do the work that they're doing. But at the same time, it's also geared towards, helping people get on the path to hopefully being public interest tax lawyers and giving them the mentoring and the support they need to have their careers, flourish and really get off to a great start. So we're looking to help both the host organizations and the fellows, really. In terms of the basics about the fellowship, it's a 2-year fellowship. And so we ask the students to make a 2-year commitment and the host organization to make a 2-year commitment to the fellowship. The fellows become, employees of the host organization. They're going to be doing work for the host organization in addition to kind of the normal work for the host organization. We always ask each fellow to propose a project, some project that's related to the organization, whether it's helping to expand the, organization's reach, to have some specific issue, address some specific issue that's maybe not unique, but like a pressing issue for clients of the organization, something that's, in addition to just the everyday work that the students are doing. And they'll need to describe that in the application materials as well, because they'll have a few essays that they have to write. And so they'll be talking about that as well. This fellowship is geared towards people who are, basically new law graduates, sorry. So students who are new law graduates or recent law graduates, people who've only been out for a few years, someone maybe just got an LLM after law school, someone who just came out of a tax court clerkship, things like that. So people who are a few years out. If people have more experience, we have a different fellowship program that is more geared towards them. It's called the Tax Analyst Fellowship. So this one is more for, kind of newer attorneys. Some of the prior fellowships, some of the, projects and things that have been successful in the recent past. So we have 2 new fellows that just started. One is starting out in Oregon at Lewis and Clark, and she's going to be focused on working, her project is focused on working with incarcerated individuals and addressing their tax issues. And then we have someone who's starting at DNA People's Legal Services, which covers basically Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah on the reservations. And so that one is helping out to expand tax services on the reservations. And then our 2 continuing fellows, because since they're 2-year fellowships and we give basically 2 a year is what it comes to. Is that's the hope, is 2 a year. So this is the 2 incoming for 2024 to 2026. The continuing ones, the ones that were 2023 to 2025, this will be their second and last year of their fellowship. One is at Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. And her project is focused on expanding Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. It's like a tongue twister. Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid's reach from just like the Twin Cities area to the whole state, really. And then we have somebody out at the Sustainable Economies Law Center in Oakland, California. And his project is focused on really assisting socially minded organizations with their tax issues, helping, these organizations have like cooperative ownership structures, things like that. See, when you get a sense just from these 4 projects and these 4 places that the reach is really nationwide in terms of where we'll send people. And the types of projects they do are very different, and the places that they're going are very different. And, it's not just one little box that everything fits in. I think, the committee, because it's not just like us that decides this. There's like a whole public service fellowship selection committee. I mean, the committee is really kind of very open-minded and is willing to think outside the box, I think, in terms of the kinds of projects and the places that people go to. Now, in terms of the requirements of the host organizations and the fellows, as I said before, the host organizations, you're committing to have this person come and work for you for 2 years. And we'll be looking for you to be willing and able to provide the kind of mentoring and support that the fellows are going to need, since they're newer attorneys. They're not going to be able to work necessarily independently on their own, especially at the very beginning of their fellowship. So we're looking for that kind of a structure to be there. And just to let you know too, Meg will talk more about the process later, but we do, when we're evaluating the fellows, we'll naturally interview the fellows, but we also interview the host organizations after we interview the fellows to make sure that, the expectations are there, they're set, and that they will be met. That you understand that we're looking for, some structure to make sure that the fellowship will be successful, because that's our goal, is to have successful fellows and successful fellowships that, benefit everyone who's involved. And in terms of the fellows, as I mentioned before, they're going to be, doing the regular work of the organization, but then also focused on a project. In addition to that, and as part of the benefits of the fellowship, they're expected to attend all 3 of the ABA tax sections meetings each year. So the fall one, which is just upcoming in a couple of weeks, if you haven't registered yet, you can still register, is virtual. And so that one is easy for them to attend. They don't have to travel anywhere to do that. So they're expected to attend the fall meeting virtually, and then we always have a winter meeting and a May meeting. Those are in person, and the tax section expects them to come to the meetings, but the tax section also pays for them to come to the meetings, comps their registrations, does the travel, the hotel, everything, to make sure that, there's no cost to them attending. And that gives them the benefit of getting, kind of all the CLE that we provide at the tax section meetings, but it also gives them opportunities for networking, getting to know people. Oftentimes our fellows end up, moderating panels or maybe even speaking on panels. So it, advances their careers, brings their issues out there and gets them more of a national audience. It also helps to raise the profile of the organizations that they're working for. So, this is a benefit, we think, all around. And then the last thing I'll talk to you about just a little bit is, kind of what the selection committee is looking for when we're looking at the files. And really what we're looking for is, in terms of the fellows, people who are committed to, doing public interest work, who are committed to, working at this organization for 2 years. We especially like it to see when, people have strong interest in tax, like some background in tax that's going to make them able to be able to be successful, to be able to do the job that they're going to be doing, and hopefully even a commitment to continuing doing public interest work in the tax area after their fellowship has ended. And I know a number of you have already mentioned, that you have people in mind, or, people who have been interns. I mean, I'll tell you that often is very, very helpful in having a successful application, because our past experience has been that, if there's some relationship that is already existing between the fellow and the host organization, there's already been that supervisor, relationship with the fellow, that those make for, well, the most successful applications, but usually the most successful fellowships as well, because you already know that the people can work together, that they get along together, and that this is gonna work out. When you have people who don't really know each other as much, it's a little bit harder. And so there, it's important, if you have people who you haven't worked with before, to make sure that you do, before the application is submitted, meet with them a bunch, whether it's in person or virtually, to get to know them, set some expectations, kind of get a sense of what potential fellow is like, so the fellow can get a sense of what their potential supervisor is going to be like, and see, how they're going to work together. And we've even had people in the past like work kind of collaboratively a little bit on the application, in the sense of, like reviewing it and making sure that everything looks okay. And so then you get a little bit of a sense of how somebody works then as well, if you're, taking a look at their work and seeing what it's like, and how they take feedback, things like that, to make sure that the application is the best that it really can be. But with that, I'll turn it over to Meg.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. That was great. The one other thing I'd say to finish the topic that Tony was covering is that um, the committee, and the committee is made up of members of the tax section who are who've been around for a while. There's a lot of LITC clinicians on there. There's academics on there. But it's a group of people who are familiar with the program and who've been through this before. And so on some years they'll weigh some things more than others, but in general, they're looking for like a holistic package of the most likely to be successful person, but they do also look pretty carefully at the project. So I would suggest that you, and I will put the link, I assume everyone here has probably visited our website page for this fellowship because it sort of feels like the first thing you do, but I will post it in the chat anyway, just in case. But when you go on the website, you can see in our website, it's a little bit easier to navigate than it once was. You can see examples, I think, and if not, I'm happy to share with you of some of the prior um projects, and you're also welcome. It is not cheating. You can reach out to me and say, this is the project that this person I'm working with is planning on putting forward. Has it been done recently? Do you think this is a total miss or whatever? And I don't like, I will talk to anyone and give my feedback. Of course, I'm not the decider here. I don't even get a vote on the committee, but I'm happy to say, yeah, we've seen independent contractor related projects come across multiple. I like, for that is a really good example. I would probably stay away from that because we've funded many of those projects.
We've seen many
Instead of,
more.
yeah, anymore. Yeah. So, the inmate assistance project was something that was a population we've never funded before. So the committee really liked that because it was something different. Same thing with the Native people population in Arizona. We've never worked with that population before. The person who was doing that, it comes from that area and that community. So that was a really compelling application. So that's just like a little bit of a glimpse into sort of what the committee is excited about. And then also, if you're choosing, someone said they were choosing between two people or multiple people, which is like a great problem to have. I would look for someone who you think could do well in an interview. It is a little bit intimidating. So someone who you think can hold up well and answer questions well about their project and their background, for a committee of professionals. I would, try to do a formal interview with them because that will help you see how they respond to that situation, because the committee, sometimes people look different on paper than they do in an interview. We've definitely had that experience many times. And then the other thing, so let me go through the timeline and I'll add a couple other things in there. So right now is the time when the sort of like matching process is happening. So many of you alluded to already having candidates. That's great. There are also probably lots of folks that might be interested in applying but don't have a host organization yet, or vice versa. You are welcome to contact me. I'll put my email in the chat. It's also on the website. Excuse me. You're welcome to contact me to say, I'm interested in being in these, or I guess you're the host organization. So saying, we're looking for someone, can you help us try to advertise? And we will do our best. Obviously, some places, some geographic areas are easier to match than others, but I'm happy to try to help you advertise. And then the next stage would be working with the host organization, and the applicant should work together on developing the essay responses and the application around their project. So it shouldn't be that the host organization's like, oh, I didn't know you were doing that. I mean, the host organization should weigh in, and often the host organization will be like, here are 5 things that I would love to work on if I didn't have this huge caseload. And 3 of them might be appropriate for a new attorney. Maybe the other ones aren't. It's totally fine for you to, and actually recommended for you to sort of maybe give them some ideas of things that could be helpful to your region or to your practice, or to the organization at large. And then work with them. The host organization also submits a letter saying why this person would be helpful to advancing tax justice in your area. And then the applications are due November 8th. The committee will review all of the paper applications and select, usually we select 4 to 5 finalist candidates. And we will let those folks know shortly thereafter that they were selected for an interview. And we do those on Zoom, and those happen with the candidates in early January. And the reason for that is because prior to that, in sort of like the early December before the holidays period, we do, as Tony alluded to, an interview first with the host organization, so that when we meet with the candidate, we have a sense of like, okay, could this person be supported in the environment that was described by the host organization? And in the host organization interview, that's usually just me and the chair and probably Tony, just a small group. But in that interview, we're looking for, how are you going to support this person who is a new lawyer most of the time? I mean, sometimes we have folks that have done a clerkship or have practiced for like a year or two. But for the most part, you're looking at people who are very junior, and it is crucially important that they get the support that they need to, not commit malpractice, but also to feel great about starting off their legal career. So, for example, are you going to be working out of the same office? How often do you work virtually? If you're working virtually, how are you supporting this person? Things like that. And then we make offers in after the finalist interviews, the 4 or 5 people that we interview over Zoom in January. We'll make offers in probably about mid-January and probably ask for pretty quick responses from the candidates. So that is a timeline. I'm sorry we're running over on time, so I'm just going to give Ty 2 minutes to cover some of the HR and like logistics, which is important to the host organizations, probably less exciting for the law students.
Yep, the nuts and bolts, as it were.
Yeah.
And just to follow on Meg, the fellowship would start approximately September 1st of the year. It does not need to be exactly that date, a week or two plus minus, but it's meant to start there in the fall, just as everyone. In terms of the nuts and bolts, the ABA Fund for Justice and Education, actually the Tax Assistance Public Service, what we call TAPS endowment, is what funds the fellowship. The ABA FJE makes a lump sum quarterly contribution to your organization, and that would include the salary, which is equivalent to a tax court clerk, as well as the FICA number, which currently is roughly 7.25%. And then it includes any direct cost health benefits. So whatever you as the organization would pay for any other employee from the organization standpoint, the fellowship doesn't pay the premium for the candidate, but rather the organization's direct costs to employ that person. And that's really the sum total. On the candidate side, they also can receive student loan interest relief. And that would just be really a pass through, just to let you know. If I had large student loans and I have interest on them, I could get that relief. We send that as a part of the contribution, and then the org just passes it through to the employee. But really, the org is the one that does all of the paperwork, all of the HR, all of the reporting to the government, all pays the salary, etc. It's really just the ABA FJE sending one lump contribution quarterly, and that contribution can adjust based on when health costs change in January, etc. So it's not a fixed number, but rather a quarterly contribution, and that's the sum.
Well, did anyone have any questions for us?
I'm gonna put my email I'll save for the recording is just Megan.Newman, no extraneous letters, just MEGAN.Newman@AmericanBar.org. Feel free to contact me anytime with questions or as you develop or as your applicant is developing their application, or in terms of finding an applicant or trying to figure out if it'll work for you. I know we're over, so feel free to go if you need to, but one comment I'll make is there are a couple of law schools here, and I think that our one of our incoming fellows who's at Lewis and Clark Law School may be the first academic LATC we've placed. If not, it's maybe the second or third. The committee has a slight preference for legal aid LATCs, because the assumption is that they wouldn't have the funding to bring this person on otherwise, and that sometimes academic institutions would. If that's not the case, and I think Sarah Laura at Lewis and Clark did a really good job of, in her host organization interview and in the application packet itself, of saying there's absolutely no way that we will get this person to come do this work if we don't get this funding. Like, there is no funding for this position, and here's how it would enable us to serve more people in the Portland area. So I would just encourage, if you are doing a application from an academic LATC, to just make that really clear on the front end. When you do your letter supporting the candidate, I would say, this person will make a huge difference in the blah, blah, blah region. And there's no other way that we could have this assistance through the university, if that's true, of course. If it's not, obviously don't say that, but it will hurt your chances. We've gotten a lot from Harvard over the years. Sorry for another day. And Polly and everyone else, if your HR/grants management/finance department, or whoever they are, are feeling anxious about this or have questions, or your director of your legal aid or whatever it is, and they have questions about how this would work. Like, is it really going to cost them nothing? Like, do they really get benefits covered? Will it really be all of the benefits? Is there any other way they could get the payments passed to them or what have you? Feel free to reach out to me as well. I'll put you in touch with Ty because he's great at answering those questions, and he does it before the applications are submitted or after or at any point in time. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep. And good luck.
Yes, good luck.